Hi, thank you for joining me for day 29 of 30 Days of Sketches with Christie's Beautiful Life. And today's sketch you can see in the top right hand corner there is by Laura Cameron Whipfler. It's a double page spread, so I've chosen to scrap the left hand side and I've rotated it through 90 degrees. I'm documenting a picture of myself and my husband when we went out for a meal with his maths team during the half term in June, beginning of June. It was the 1st of June. It was a beautiful sunny day. We didn't take any photos of the actual event, but I've got a picture of us before we went out and then some of our garden when we got home and had a glass of wine in the garden. So I just wanted to document that day because it was really nice. It was very special meeting up with the team. They're such lovely people. So I'm using Vicki Boutin's Where To Next again. And I'm just creating the borders along the side of the page. So first of all, I started with a torn strip of that herringbone paper. Then I went in with the floral black and white paper. And now I'm using this blue spotty paper to create a scallop border. So I've just used one of my Flair badges to draw the circles around. And now I'm using my Cutter-Bee scissors to trim that down. And I'm actually going to keep the waist of the scallop and use that on the left hand side of the page, you'll see shortly. So just trying to lift up that black and white floral. I tear it a little bit, but I don't mind because I like the rough look anyway, so it really doesn't matter. And then I'm going to tuck that scallop border underneath it, just using some wet glue to get that stuck down. I think that's the mistake I made with that floral one. I probably should have used my tape runner. And this is the waist, like I say, so I'm just going to line that up against the left-hand side of the page and stick that down, and it creates a really nice effect. Waist not, want not, you know. So just trimming the excess off the bottom there. And I decided that I wanted to use one of the 49 Market Essentials film strips. So I've just brought one in that olive green colour. I think it's called Sage. And I'm going to lay that underneath the scalloped border. But first of all, I wanted to do a little bit of inking. So I'm just bringing in scattered straw and my little detail brush and one of my Tim Holtz collection from Stampers Anonymous stencils. It's just a load of polka dots. So just adding that in random places around the page where that film strip's going to lie. I do this bit that I'm doing now, but that gets totally covered up by the photos, and then some more on the right hand side as well. So just checking, and this is where I realised that those photos are just all going to cover that up. So then bringing a bit more in, as I say, to the right hand side here. And once that's down, I can start matting and layering. So first of all, I decide I want to add some washi tape underneath this scallop border, and again this almost gets covered by the film strip, but just looking at the layout now you can see a little bit of it peeking out, and it's all these layers that add the tiny little details that your eye almost doesn't notice, but it makes such a difference. So sticking this film strip down with my wet glue, and then I can mat those square photos. Oh, first of all, bringing in some twine. Sorry, this is wax twine, and I'm just wrapping it around a couple of times and tying in a knot. Again, this is just a different texture and dimension on the layout, which I really enjoy. And it's also bringing the green into that left-hand side of the page because I'm wearing a green dress in the photo of myself and my husband. So I wanted to bring that in. So just going to tape that down on the back. There are two ways of doing this. In the past, I've cut tiny notches out the top and bottom of my page with a hole punch. This time I decided just to sellotape it to the back of the page. So working out again exactly where those photos go before adding mats to these square photos. So just grabbing papers from the 6x8 paper pad. This is a paper I used on a previous layout. So I try and use the scraps before I tuck into a clean sheet, if you like, if the colours work for me. So just flipping that paper over and using the same paper again for the middle photo. And then I shall find a different paper for the top photo. And these square photos are just pictures of, as I say, us in our garden. The sun was beaming through the clouds, so I got a couple of snaps of that. And then one of my wine glass, which is looking very sad actually, almost empty, but Ross did top it up for me, he's good. So using this black and white paper for the last photo, I didn't want anything too colourful because I wanted to stick with the blues and greens as much as possible. And I love how those look. So again, just checking the positioning before I move on to the picture of the two of us. And I can glue those down with my tape runner. This is the Sticks 2 tape runner that you've seen me using recently. I'm really enjoying using that. And there we go. So now the photo of us, and again using that same black and white paper as my first mat on the photo of us. And then I bring in an emerald green paper from the 6x8 paper pad to mat that onto, and I offset them slightly just to create a bit of interest really. So here's that green one, and doing exactly the same again. I don't stick the photo down, I just trim around it and then stick it down once it's cut. There we go. So sticking that down to the page, and then I can start really embellishing. So first of all, I want to work on that left-hand side cluster that you've got in the sketch. Actually, before I do that, I just trim one of these word strips from here that says Happy Times and stick that on the photo of us. I just think that works really nicely there. And now I'm going to start on that left-hand cluster. So I bring in a printed Flair badge. It was when I was trying out one of our new Flair designs. I just printed it onto card. So I'm sticking that flat to the page. Got one of James's JD3DPrint cameras, wood cameras, and one of our Flair badges with the chevrons. That's the one I used to draw around to make the scallops. I just had it to hand, so I used that. And then I found this lovely circular heart in the chipboard set and decided that I wanted to use that. So I do actually pull bits up. I pull up that Flair badge to get that down. I think it looks really nice there. So just move that Flair badge down to the bottom. And then I find a lovely pink heart in the chipboard set, so that gets layered on top of the other white chipboard. And I just have to add some foam pads underneath the left hand and bottom side, because obviously there's a lot of dimension there with two pieces of chipboard layered up. So that's that done. And next I come in with some of the bits and pieces from Hey Little Magpie. So I've got a gorgeous navy blue embroidered flower there, and also one of these suede smiley faces that goes on top of that heart, and then one of the padded hearts that I'm adding to the left of that Happy Times tab that I've got there. So just gluing all these down with my wet glue while I remember, because if I leave them I'll forget. And then I find this gorgeous embroidered smile tab, again from the bits and pieces at Hey Little Magpie. So I add that along with a flower tab on the right hand side of the photo of us. So just using my tape runner to stick that down. I find it best to use a tape runner or stitch these on, or glue dots, because if you use wet glue it does have a tendency to show through the fabric. Next I'm going into the chipboard frames, and the first thing that I set my hands on is this green one, so I use half of that tucked under the scallops, and I really like that. And then I find in the Papyri paper pack this coffee stain in green, and I just think that will work really nicely underneath the photo of us on the right hand side. Slowly starting to build up that cluster on the right hand side of that photo. So just bringing in another washi tape sticker at the bottom of the left hand cluster which says Happy Times, and then another frame. I was toying with using the green one, but I wanted to bring some more blue into this side of the page because I've got that green dress on. I felt that I needed more blue to balance it out, so just trimmed the edge off a different frame and tucked that under the photo of us. So just gluing that down with my wet glue, adding some glue to the corners where I've had to peel the page up, and now into the printables for where to next. And I first of all use this navy blue camera, and that works really nicely down there. I'm just going to add, I am going to add an epoxy flare to that as well, and then one of the square labels in beige, just as a grounding place really for that flare. So I just tuck that underneath on the right hand side, nestled up against the edge, the right hand side edge of the page. And that's built that cluster up really nicely there. So just adding some glue and then adding that epoxy that I mentioned to that Flair badge and sticking that down on top of the frame. And that just nestles underneath that heart as well, so it brings everything together nicely. Next, I felt that label was a little bit too plain, so I just wanted to add a few little bits. So first of all, a heart sticker from the sticker book, and then a gold sticker again from a different page on the sticker book. And then I go back to that wordy paper from the 6x8 paper pad and find a phrase that just says "love this." So I just stick that overlapping the bottom of that gold heart, and that fills up that label really nicely. Just some wet glue to glue that down. Next I'm going to add my journaling. So the journaling just reads, a lovely lunch out Cafe Crusoe at half term with Team Maths, then home for more wine in the beautiful sunshine. As I say, we didn't get any pictures of the actual meal. I think one of the girls did, but we've not had it shared yet, so I thought I would just document it without that, because it's just the memory that I want to put in our album. So I decided that I needed a little bit more inking around the top here. It's looking a bit bland. So again, with that scattered straw and my brush, just adding tiny bits and checking how it looks before moving on. And I keep going and going, and I do manage to stop myself before I go crazy. Otherwise the whole of the page would be covered, I think, if I just kept going and going. So almost there, just a little bit more at the bottom. And I'm barely re-inking my brush because I want the different tones of the yellow to come through. And now into the puffy stickers, just to see if there are some little bits to finish off embellishing. So I find a couple of puffy dots that I add here in yellow and blue, and a little heart that goes at the bottom of the page. And then a few more puffy dots. And then when I've added those, I add that yellow arrow, which I think just complements everything really nicely, and then I find a blue arrow to put at the bottom of the page as well. Just seeing if there's anything else. And I do add a little puffy that says "loving this life" onto that frame. And then now I've gone back into the 6x12 sticker sheet and the chipboard and just finding a few more bits and pieces to nestle around the page. So now my date, which is going to go in that gap that the frame has created, and that's it. Thank you so much for joining me. Do check the description box for the playlist of everybody joining in, and Laura Cameron Whipler's details as well. I'll see you tomorrow for the last day. Bye.